Ladies and gentle gamers, welcome back to Be Determined. In today's video, I'm going to be guiding you through the Rev Slayer, all of the bosses, all of the rewards, the best things to make, and some easy tricks you can do to be able to defeat some of the bosses you might be struggling with. So if you enjoy or you learn something, make sure to drop a like and smash the sub button if you haven't already. I'm trying to get to 30,000 subs before the end of the year, and every little bit helps. Without further ado, let's jump into it. Before you even start Rev Slayer, I highly recommend making sure you've gone to the end and completed the whole quest line there. It'll give you access to the entire Ender Armor set, which is a great starter set for handling these bosses. And it will also give you the Void Sword, which is a great starter weapon to be able to handle the first couple tiers of the Rev boss. So moving forward, we're going to be operating on the assumption that you have completed that quest, which requires you to get combat level 12, so you should be doing pretty decent damage off the bat. But some other great ways to get some more damage is from the Zombie Soldier Shard. This shard grants you up to 30% more damage against undead mobs. Once you do get it up to level 10, it'll give you that much. But if you don't want to throw a ton of money at it, you can just grab a couple levels. It's about 10k per shard as of me recording this, so it's not too expensive to at least grab a few levels and get you a decent percentage of damage against undead mobs. Another great shard to get is the Tank Zombie Shard. This one grants defense against undead mobs, so if you're struggling with survivability against these guys, this is a great shard to help out with that. It is a bit more expensive, however, so only go for these if you're really struggling, or if you have a ton of money to spend. The last shard to go for would be a Shellwise Shard. These guys grant up to 100% knockback resistance if you do get it all the way up to level 10. They are a little bit more on the pricey side, but if you've already gotten to Galatia, you can also grab these shards pretty easily yourself. So it's not a bad idea to go for it that way. If you don't want to go for these shards, I highly recommend getting a Dwarf Turtle Shellmet on whichever pet you're going to be using to fight the boss. They're a little bit pricey if you're just starting out, but it's definitely worth it. And as far as pets to use against the boss, I highly recommend getting a legendary zombie pet. At level 1, it reduces the damage you take from zombies by 15% and makes you deal 26% more damage against them. Plus, it will increase the stats on undead armor if you're wearing that later on. And again, this is just at level 1. Once you get it up to level 100, it does way more. Another great pet to go for is the Ghoul pet, mainly because of this first ability, Undead Slayer. So you can get it at the epic rarity, and it's still really good. It not only gives a ton of healing and also ferocity to deal extra damage, but that combat XP boost will make you spawn your Slayer bosses much faster. Not to mention, the epic version is very cheap, so if you want to get faster bosses and you're struggling with survivability, this is a great pet to use. If you do have some auto pet rules, you can go ahead and get a Ghoul pet and a zombie pet and have the Ghoul pet rules set up like this, so that when you start a Slayer quest, it equips the Ghoul pet, and then once the Slayer boss spawns, it equips your zombie or whatever other combat pet you're going to be using to fight the boss. A few more tips and tricks before we jump into the nitty-gritty of each level's abilities and things like that. If you do end up struggling a bit with the damage output that you're doing, like you're not doing enough damage to kill the bosses in time, or you're just struggling with survivability a little bit, a great way to increase your damage is to go into Skyblock leveling and head to the Skyblock guide, and then start at whatever tier you need to where you don't have all the accessories. This is a great way to find more magical power so that you can be dealing a bit more damage. So if you don't have all these accessories, you can just click here and see which ones you haven't obtained. And if there's one you don't have yet, then you can click on it and then go to the wiki page for it to see exactly how to get it. And as far as magical powers go, a great starter one to use would be either the Silky magical power, which gives a bunch of crit damage, or the Itchy magical power, which gives a bunch of bonus attack speed. Personally, I would recommend going for Itchy if you can. It's not expensive to unlock this magical power. However, to actually use it, you do have to be combat 20, so if you're too early on for this, then going for Silky isn't a bad option. It does require combat 15, so it's a little bit easier to get to, but if you don't have the ability to get that one yet, then Warrior is a great option, or Commando. Or if you're struggling with crit chance still, Disciplined isn't bad either, and same goes for Fortuitous. So any of those options are viable depending on how much crit chance you need and that sort of thing. If you do want to use Commando or Warrior, but you're still struggling with crit chance, I would recommend putting the Sharp Reforge on whichever weapon you're using. Again, at the start, I recommend using Void Sword, but later on, you'll be using upgraded versions of this Undead Sword. But as you can see, Sharp Reforge gives quite a bit of crit chance, so this is very helpful for early on. However, if you're not struggling with crit chance anymore, then Spicy or Epic are also good options for starting out. Now that we got all the setup out of the way, let's actually talk about fighting these revs. The tier 1 boss has 500 health and only does 15 damage per second, so honestly, if you're just starting out and you have a rogue sword and like leaflet armor, you can probably handle one of these. Generally, when you first start out, you'll be killing these graveyard zombies to spawn in the boss, but later on, you'll go down into the crypts to fight the crypt ghouls to spawn faster. But here's the boss. He doesn't really do too much. You can see he'll just drain your health every couple seconds, aka he has an AoE attack that does a little bit of damage. And you will also notice that if you stand still for a while, then sometimes he will do a big attack. Or if you don't have a Shellman on your pet or the Shellwise ability, then if you're just sitting in a corner and he's just hitting you up against the wall and you're not moving out of the corner, he will still do a big chunk of damage every now and then. So it's a good idea to just try and be moving around a little bit to not take that big damage. It's mainly going to be more helpful for the later bosses because this guy's a pushover. After you kill your first T1 boss, you will unlock the level 1 Zombie Slayer, which will give you a few rewards, mainly the recipe for the Wand of Healing. This wand will heal you for 60 health per second for 7 seconds after you right click it. So it's definitely good to go for surviving those AoE attacks that these guys do. And it's pretty cheap, only costs 16 Revenant Flesh and a stick. So after you defeat a few bosses, you can make this yourself if you're trying to do it Iron Man style. If not, you can just buy it on Bazaar for very cheap as well. If you already have the Ender Armor and the Void Sword though, fighting a T2 right now wouldn't be a bad idea as well because they're very easy to take on. To fight your first T2, you'll have to have killed the T1 and be combat level 5, which if you have the Void gear, won't be difficult at all. You'll have already done it. But you can see this boss has a AoE attack as well, shredding armor by 25%. So the life drain ability does also give him back health. So you may notice him regenning some health on top of the extra AoE damage that he's doing. So he's going to be hitting a lot harder than the T1 was as well. So it's, again, a very good idea to have that healing wand. If you have the Void gear and stuff, you are hopefully able to do 2,000 damage though, which means you'll be able to take down these crypt ghouls. They only have 2k health each. If you're one-tapping them, it's definitely a good idea to spawn down here. It'll be much faster than spawning in the higher up areas. And then you will fight this boss. Again, he does have 20,000 health. You'll have 3 minutes to kill him, and he's just going to be doing more AoE damage, just like with the tier 1. He will do a big hit if you stand still for too long, or if you back up into a corner and let him keep hitting you without moving around. So it's a good idea to be moving around while you're fighting him, but hopefully you'll be able to take him down pretty quickly. After you've killed him or taken down a few T1s, you'll unlock access to Zombie Slayer level 2, which will give you the Zombie Ring recipe, which reduces the damage taken from undead mobs by 10%. This is a massive help for fighting the later tier bosses, so highly recommend making one of these. It's just an upgraded version of the Zombie Talisman. Requires a stack of Revenant Flesh and the Zombie Talisman to make, so make sure to get your hands on this. It's very cheap and very worth it. You'll also unlock access to the Small Slayer stack, which is a little bit more on the expensive side, but at this point, you may end up having your inventory fill up a bit with Rev Flesh if you fight a ton of these bosses, so it's not a bad idea to go ahead and make this just to stop your inventory from filling up as often. After you keep fighting these T2s, you will eventually unlock Zombie Slayer level 3. This will let you drop the Undead Catalyst rarely from the Rev Horror, as well as access to a few other recipes. The Revenant Falchion is a great weapon for handling these guys. I would definitely recommend upgrading to this from your Void Sword. It should be doing quite a bit more damage to them than your Void Sword does. However, to make it, you will need that Undead Catalyst and a Crystallized Heart, which requires a Zombie's Heart, which is 4 stacks of Enchanted Rotten Flesh, and another 4 stacks of Enchanted Diamonds to make the Crystallized Heart. And you can then use that to upgrade an Undead Sword to the Revenant Falchion. Feel free to spend a bunch of money on upgrading this thing because you're going to be using it as you upgrade it throughout the entirety of the Revenant Slayer. This is the maxed version of that sword, the Halberd of the Shredded, and you can put all the upgrades that I've got on this onto your Revenant Falchion if you so choose. That includes recomming it, putting hot potato books, fuming potato books. You can also star this at the dungeon NPC, the blacksmith in the dungeon hub. And as far as enchants go, I highly recommend putting sharpness and smite on here for sure. Above anything else, those are very low requirements to put on, and getting at least Smite level 6. It's a very cheap enchant. You don't have to upgrade it to 7 immediately, but make sure you get Smite 6 and Sharpness 5 off the bat. Even if you're later game, like you skipped Slayers and just went into dungeons and you're coming back to try and do Slayers now, and you've got like a Livid Dagger or some other weapon that does more damage, it's still a good idea to make this because it will be better for spawning later on. As you upgrade the weapon, you unlock combat wisdom on it against undead mobs, so it will make you spawn your bosses faster even if you don't use it to actually kill the bosses. So it's still a good idea to go ahead and make one of these. You also get an upgrade to your Wand of Healing. You can upgrade it to the Wand of Mending, which will make it heal 90 health per second instead of 60 health. And it's also a pretty cheap upgrade, so definitely worth going for. Will again help you survive those AoE attacks a bit easier. It's also not a bad idea to make a crystallized heart for yourself to wear on your helmet. It is actually a helmet that you can wear as well as an upgrade component for the Rev Falchion, but it doubles your mending and vitality, aka it doubles your natural healing, which will mean it heals you a lot more, especially if you are using a ghoul pet, because this thing gives a bunch of vitality and mending. So it's not a bad idea to wear this if you're struggling with survivability, but this isn't the only armor upgrade I would recommend at this point. Getting a good dragon armor set is very helpful for fighting these guys. Depending on the set you go for, it can be more or less expensive. If you want to try and craft it yourself, you don't have to buy it on the auction house, you can get it on Bazaar, but you'll need a total of 240 pieces to make the whole set. If you do end up getting the crystallized helmet and you're going to use that instead though, you can bring it down to 190 because you're not going to be making the helmet. But as you can see, for the strong dragon set, it costs about 8 million coins right now, excluding the helmet. So if that's a little bit too much on the pricey side, it's not a bad idea to go for unstable or young dragon. Both of these sets are pretty similar to strong, and honestly, since you're not using an AOTD, the strong dragon armor isn't nearly as good as it would be if you are using an AOTD. But again, it's like a quarter of the price for the unstable or the young dragon set minus the helmet, or even with the helmet. So would highly recommend grabbing one of those because it will help you immensely, not only with survivability but also with your damage output. With these upgrades, you should be able to easily fight the T3 boss, but just in case, there's a few more things you can do. If you've gotten to the point where your accessory bag is full, there are a few ways that you can increase the slots in it. Number one, when you type /hub, you'll spawn right here in front of the community center. Just walk in and talk to Elizabeth, and then head to the account and profile upgrades and try and upgrade this accessory bag section right here if you haven't maxed it out yet, because you can get up to 12 extra slots just from this. You can also head over to the deep caverns. If you haven't talked to the redstone NPC here, he will give you some more accessory bag slots for some pretty cheap prices, just a couple stacks of redstone. And as he says here, you can also upgrade your redstone collection, or for the more pricey route, talk to Jacobus in the village, which is over by Maxwell, the magical power NPC. He's in the same building as him. If you want to talk to him and get some more accessory bag slots, it will cost you millions of coins though to do it that way, so make sure to go for redstone collection if you haven't maxed that out yet. It's much cheaper. Another big thing to do is to make sure you go for Sven Packmaster level 3 as fast as you can. It gives you this Maddox Batphone, which basically means you can just call Maddox from any location without having to come back and talk to him every time you want to start a Slayer. So it's a very big deal to be able to spawn in a bunch of Slayers and get them done quickly. Now that we're actually ready to fight the T3 boss, let's go ahead and talk about his new ability, which is Enrage. He'll get real mad once in a while. So as you can see here, he has 400,000 health as well. I'm just going to knock his health down a little bit. And you will notice once he gets down to 215, he enrages, his armor turns red. He's not actually supposed to have a Steve head on right now. It's supposed to be a different helmet, but for some reason it's not downloaded for me. But you'll see he does stay enraged there for a moment, and he'll just do a bunch of extra damage while he's enraged. So if you do end up taking a bunch of damage from him getting enraged, then try to just back away while he's upset. He'll be upset for about 6 seconds, and then you can jump back in and keep fighting him. However, you will notice in that clip there, he did start regenerating his health. And that's because I didn't hit him for too long. So if you are staying away and not hitting him for too long, then he will start regenerating HP. So make sure you don't stay away for longer than like 5 seconds if you can help it. Once you've defeated your first tier 3, you will unlock access to the RNG meter, which fills up a little bit every time you defeat a tier 3 or higher. However, I wouldn't recommend messing with this too much right now. Most of the drops that are actually worth something are from the T5 boss, so you won't even be able to drop anything that's really worth a bunch of money yet. So wait until you hit Revenant level 7 and can fight the T5 boss before you really go and worry about this RNG meter. Now, once you've defeated the tier 3, you will go ahead and unlock access to fighting the tier 4 as long as you're combat 15 or higher. But as you can see, his damage is way more and his health is way more. So if you were struggling at all with the tier 3, it's probably not a good idea to challenge this guy just yet. It's going to be better to wait until we get some more weapon upgrades before we fight him. Again, if you have already progressed a ton in dungeons, you've got like a Livid Dagger or Shadow Assassin armor, you can try to fight this guy at this point, but for most people, it's not going to be worth taking him on. But after you fight enough T3s, you will get access to Zombie Slayer level 4, which does unlock the Revenant armor set. If you're struggling with survivability, you can go for this. It does make you heal a bunch more and give a bunch of defense against undead mobs, and it will increase the amount of defense you get based on how many kills you get on them. But generally, your damage per second from using the dragon armor that you got before is gonna be way more important. If you are struggling with survivability, it is a good idea to try and get the lifesteal enchant. It doesn't have to be level 4 or level 5 like this. Those are pretty expensive. If you want to just go for level 3 from the enchant table, that's completely fine, but it will heal you for a percentage of your max health each time you hit a mob, which is really nice. So make sure you have that on whichever weapon you're using. Now, once you hit level 4, hopefully you've gotten enough combat XP to level up once or twice. You can try and take on the tier 4 boss at this point if you want to, but again, if you're still struggling with a T3 a little bit, it's not a bad idea to wait it out until you get to like zombie level 5 or honestly even level 6. But generally, I would recommend by the time you get to level 5, if you're still struggling to handle the tier 4 boss, again, you can do those magical power upgrades, check your Skyblock guide and see if you've got anything easy to go for, or maybe take a break from Rev Horrors and try and fight some Tarantulas or some Sven. Tarantula Slayer has a really nice helmet that you unlock at level 4, the Tarantula helmet, that gives a bunch of extra attack on your 4th strike, and it applies Venom, which reduces healing, which is pretty good for fighting Revs. So maybe try and go for this before you attempt the tier 4s. If you're struggling with them. It also does give crit damage for strength. So if you wanted to swap to a magical power that has more strength, you can go for that as well. But it's just not a bad idea to do this because it also does give combat XP for fighting these bosses, which will help you level up your combat and be able to do more damage against every type of boss, not just the Rev Horrors. But again, once you hit level 5 on the Zombie Slayer rewards, you unlock a few things. The Devour Ring is a nice talisman. It's a little bit pricey, but it will heal you when killing a monster, which again doesn't really help for during the boss fight, but it is a talisman, so it is going to increase your damage. You also unlock access to the Revenant chestplate, so if you are going for a tankier build and you want to run the Revenant armor set, you can do that and maybe be able to handle the T4s. However, your fights will not go by very quickly. Again, this set is great for defense, not very good for attacking. You'll also unlock the Revenant Minion Tier 1 and the Voodoo Doll, neither of which are really relevant to the actual fighting of the boss, so we won't really worry about them too much. Once you hit level 6, grinding the tier 4 bosses will become way easier though, because you do unlock the Reaper Falchion, which is the second best variation of the undead sword. It requires a Revenant Catalyst and a Revived Heart. The Catalyst is a drop that you can get from Rev Horrors once you're Zombie Slayer level 6, and the Revived Heart is an upgraded version of the Crystallized Heart that requires 8 zombie hearts to make. And again, those zombie hearts require 4 stacks of Enchanted Rotten Flesh. So this is basically 32 stacks of Enchanted Rotten Flesh, around another 4 stacks of Enchanted Rotten Flesh, and 4 stacks of Enchanted Diamonds. And you will need that to make the upgraded version, the Reaper Falchion, which you can see the Revenant Falchion has 90 base damage and does a 150% damage bonus to undead mobs. The Reaper Falchion has 30 extra damage at base and does 200% more damage to undead mobs. Plus, it heals you 10 extra health per hit and gives combat wisdom. So you're going to be spawning your bosses a lot quicker. So make sure to get your hands on this. Once you do have it, killing the T4s shouldn't be a problem at all. If you are still struggling with survivability, you can keep upgrading your wand. You do unlock the Wand of Restoration at this level, which heals for 120 health per second. And it's, again, not too expensive. It's about 1,000,000 coins at the moment to upgrade from a Wand of Mending to a Wand of Restoration. But again, if you're struggling, it's definitely worth it. One big thing to do once you do hit zombie level 6 here is to go ahead and unlock the level 6 on Sven, Packmaster, and Tarantula as well. Once you have all 3 of them up to level 6, you do unlock this Auto Slayer ability, which basically means you don't have to call Maddox in between every single fight, which saves so much time and is just way less annoying in general as well. So highly recommend going for that. Let's go ahead and spawn a T4 boss. Again, it's pretty much the same thing as a tier 3 boss. However, it just has a bunch more health, does a bunch more damage, and gives a bunch more XP. So that part is very nice. But here he is. You can see he has 1.5 million HP. And he will have that enrage ability that he'll do every now and then. Unfortunately, I just one-tapped him. But you've seen the enrage ability before. It's just the same as it was, but a lot more damage than the T3 would have done during his enrage ability. So just whenever he enrages, try and back away if you can. Now, it takes 80,000 XP to get to Zombie Slayer level 7, which if you're doing these tier 4s outside of Aatrox, it is Aatrox perks right now, so he does give a bit more Zombie Slayer XP. Normally, however, it's going to be 500 Zombie Slayer XP per boss. So you're going to have to kill about 160 of them in order to be able to unlock Zombie Slayer level 7. At this point, you will unlock the Zombie Artifact, which is a great upgrade. Gives some extra defense or reduced damage from zombies. It's not too expensive. It does cost a bit in Revenant Viscera, but the other parts of the upgrade aren't expensive at all. It is just an upgraded version of the zombie ring. You'll also unlock the Reaper Mask, which is just an upgraded version of the Revived Heart. This is a great helmet if you're going to be tanking in dungeons, so not a bad thing to go for at all. Also does, again, help a ton with your survivability, so very nice for fighting bosses that do a lot of damage, such as the tier 5 Revenant, which we'll talk about in a minute. You also unlock the Reaper Scythe, which isn't really helpful. It's technically an upgraded version of the Reaper Falchion. However, you can see it doesn't deal the extra damage to undead mobs or have the combat wisdom that the Reaper Falchion does. It's just nowhere on the description of this item. So it's a bit worse for the actual purposes that we are going to be employing here. Reaper Scythe isn't a bad item to use for Enderman Slayer later on, but for Rev Slayer, not really good. You do also unlock the Wand of Atonement, which is again an upgraded version of the Wand of Restoration, and now does 170 health per second, so again a very great item to use for healing. There is also the Reaper Armor, which is one of the best armor sets in the game to use for fighting these guys. It is basically, again, just an upgraded version of the Revenant gear, but it actually does give a damage increase to undead mobs. It also has some strength at its base, as well as some intelligence, and the Enrage ability, which makes you do a ton more damage for 6 seconds whenever you use it. It does have a 25-second cooldown, though. However, this set is extremely expensive. You can see it's going to cost you about 7 to 8 mil in Revenant Viscera alone, plus another 1,000,000 coins in enchanted diamond blocks, and that's just for one armor piece to upgrade, and its only use is for Revenant Slayers. So if you're just starting off the game, you don't have a ton of net worth to throw at things, I wouldn't really worry about going for this set. Again, it's just too expensive and it doesn't have enough uses. You're better off just waiting until you get like either a Shadow Assassin or even a Necron armor set to try and go for these. I do recommend going for the Reaper Mask, but that's the only piece in here that's really worth going for. The rest of the Reaper set is just not worth it. If you are later game and you've got a bit more money to throw around, it may not be a bad thing to go for. It is in Museum, so if you're planning on maxing out Museum, you're going to have to get it at some point anyways, so might as well go for it while it's still worth it. But again, if you're just starting out, this set only has the uses for Revenant Slayer. It's not used anywhere else, so you're better off just throwing that money towards maybe a better pet, maybe some more talismans, or some better enchants for your weapons, rather than spending that money on this armor set. But once you're zombie level 7, you also unlock access to the tier 5 boss, which is a whole nother beast. You can see none of its abilities are the same as the tier 4. It also has a ton of health, 10 million health, and it does 6 times the damage per second as the Revenant Horror T4. And his abilities are that he heals rapidly, he is immune to magic damage, so you can't use magic weapons against him. He throws explosive TNT, and he can go thermonuclear if you don't deal enough damage. So let's go ahead and spawn him and see how this fight goes. Alright, he should spawn off this kill right here. There he is. So you'll see he starts throwing TNT immediately. And if you do stand in the TNT for too long, you can see even with all my health, I have a ton of health. It's just getting chunked by every single hit that he does. So you want to kind of try and be backing away from him. I recommend doing this fight in F5 like I am right here. It's just a lot better for being able to see where the TNT is landing, whether it's behind you, to the left, or to the right. And you can see right here, once it gets down to the 30-second mark, after he's been alive, he will go thermonuclear. Unfortunately, I did kill him with the venomous hit there, but we'll go ahead and spawn another one, and we'll get it to that phase just so you can see exactly how much damage it does, as well as how crazy it looks. All right, here we are. So we're gonna have to wait a few seconds for him to spawn it. Again, he starts off with a 3-minute countdown before he despawns. Once it gets down to 2 minutes and 30 seconds, he will do this thermonuclear move. I do recommend trying to fight him or spawn him in these lower areas with the flat ground, because it just makes things easier to maneuver. He can get a little bit buggy with like fences and stuff when he throws the TNT. Let's see how much damage this does. I'm dead. I just got one tapped. And for reference, I do currently have 78,000 effective health. So he does basically all the damage in the world with that one attack. So you got to make sure you stay out of the way, or ideally you be able to kill him before he even gets down to 30 seconds to where he will start that attack. That would be great, but when you're lower levels, that's going to be a little bit harder to do. So if he does get to that point, just back up. He's got a really wide radius on that attack. Anywhere on the ground where it shows that ability, he will be doing that damage. So you'll notice here that when he does get to it, it's like a 15 to 20 block radius. So you just want to back up, stay as far away as you can. He will be sitting still there for a few seconds. So if you really want to, when he starts this attack here, you can try and get a couple hits on him before it backs off, but then back up before the explosion goes off, and then you can go back in. But again, a big tip with this is to stay in F5 at least during the fight. You don't have to stay in F5 while you're spawning, but once the fight starts, it's just easier to keep track of where the explosions are going. But the main thing to do is just be kind of moving in a circle like this so that you're not getting hit. You can swap the directions of the circle if you want to, but just make sure you're moving in a solid circle just like that so you don't get hit by any of the bombs. After you kill quite a few tier 5s, you'll unlock Zombie Slayer level 8, which at its base gives 50 health regen, which will help a ton with your survivability, and it will also give you access to the Reaper Orb, which requires 8 Scythe Blades to make. It's one of the more pricey talismans that you can unlock from Slayers, so maybe don't go for this immediately unless you're rich. But you also get access to the Halberd of the Shredded, which is the highest tier of the undead sword. It's a very, very strong weapon. However, if you're able to handle with the Reaper Falchion, it may not be worth upgrading to. It costs like 60 million coins or something to upgrade from a Reaper Falchion to a Halberd of the Shredded. And unless you get super RNG carried with Warden Hearts, you are not going to make that money back by hitting Rev level 9. You'll have to go past Rev level 9 to make this worth getting. So if you do want to go past Rev level 9, then be my guest. But for most players, just getting to Rev 9 is fine. So there's really not a great reason to go for this unless you're just trying to max out your museum. But one thing that is definitely worth going for is the Warden Helmet. This thing, first off, requires the Warden Heart, the rarest drop from the RNG meter, which now that you're handling tier 5 bosses, you can definitely select. So if you just go to your RNG meter and select the Warden Heart, you can make yourself a bit more likely to drop them rather than the 1 in 10,000 or something chance that it is normally. But it will also cost 2 stacks of enchanted iron blocks as well as 2 revived hearts. So all things considered, not too much. It's like 10 or 12 million coins on top of the price of the Warden Heart. So the 100 million coins from the Warden Heart is definitely the most expensive part of this item. But this helmet is used in Kudra as well as Blaze Slayer a lot of times. One of the helmets that people like to use with Crimson Armor. It does a ton of damage and it will help you a ton with your other Slayers in the future. So definitely worth going for. One of the best helmets in the game. And you'll also notice at level 8, you unlock the Zombie Brain Mixin in the bartender shop. This gives you an extra 10 ferocity in your god potions. You can drink one every ever how many hours. It's 36 at default, but if you have a parrot pet or a high alchemy level, it will increase the amount of hours that it's effective. But it's just a nice little thing to go for if you want some extra ferocity, a little bit of extra damage here and there. It's pretty helpful. And finally, there is Zombie Slayer level 9, which for getting this, you unlock the Reaper Gem, which you can buy from the Janitor NPC in the gold mine if you want multiple of them, but you'll just get one for free off the bat. That gives you 8 ferocity for 5 seconds on kill. Basically, this thing is trash, so don't really worry about it. You do also get 6 health, a ton of Skyblock XP, and the Revenant Minion tier 12 upgrade stone, which you can buy up here at the bartender. and upgrade your Revenant minion to tier 12 if you want to. But that's a pretty major flex to go for. Only really worth getting if you are going for maxed out minion slots. But I imagine if you're going for Rev level 9, it's mainly for Skyblock XP or just to get your combat level up. So it's just a nice side effect of something that you can get here. But that is everything you need to know about starting out on Revenant Slayer. If this video gets a bunch of likes and views, then I will make a Tarantula Slayer guide as well. I'm trying to hold off on making Spins or any other Slayer guides until they add the tier 5s, but I may end up waiting a while, so we'll see. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Took me multiple hours of research and recording. This is the second time I'm recording this video, actually. The first time I didn't have my microphone on, so that was great. So again, if you enjoyed or you learned something, please make sure to drop a like on this one. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next one. Have an amazing rest of your day, and God bless.